Hey there. You're listening to True Story No Cap. Real stories, no exaggeration, no lies. Just the raw, unfiltered moments life throws our way. Relax, lean back, and let's get started. The blue light of the monitor cut into Elena's tired eyes as she closed the last file. Another day dissolved into work, consumed by the endless flow of tasks. Glancing at the clock, she gasped in surprise. It was already 10 in the evening. Her hand automatically reached for her phone, where 3 missed calls from Paul were waiting. Dialing his number, she nervously tapped a pen on the desk, each tap echoing with guilt. Paul didn't answer for a long time, and Elena was about to hang up when his displeased voice came through the receiver. "Yes, darling," she said, hearing how fawning and guilty her own voice sounded. "I'm sorry." He sighed. Silence hung in the air, but the call didn't disconnect. It was at least some sign of hope. "I know I promised to finish early today," Elena continued, feeling the words stick in her throat. "But the project—" Paul cut her off sharply. "The project, of course, Ellie. I understand. Work is above all else. Only you're marrying me, not a project." "Paul, our wedding is in a month," she gently reminded him. "All right, I'll wait for you at home." "I'll be there soon, love." Hanging up, Elena slowly exhaled, feeling the weight of guilt pressing down on her. How could she forget her promise? However, it was no surprise. Work had been her only passion for many years, until Paul appeared in her life 2 years ago. She smiled, looking at the elegant diamond ring on her finger, remembering that evening, his nervousness, the violin music and applause from strangers, answering yes through tears of joy. Only a year passed, and her relationship with Paul changed beyond recognition. He blamed her work, although she had always worked so much, even when they first met. Of course, a year ago she was promoted and the workload increased manifold. Now the future of the firm depended on this project, and Elena couldn't let her colleagues down. Paul didn't understand this, and arguments became more frequent. When she finally got home, he was already asleep, curled up. Elena gently stroked his head. He snuffled like a child but didn't wake up. Sighing, she went to the bathroom, knowing that tomorrow morning he would be silent again. In the mirror, a tall, slender girl with a smooth black bob, huge dark eyes, and long eyelashes looked back at her. Should such a beauty spend her days and nights at a computer in the office? Elena smiled at her reflection, making a decision. This week, she would take a day off. She would get herself ready, put on a beautiful dress, style her hair, and do her makeup. Then she would order dinner and wine, put on music, and wait for him to come home from work. Perhaps then he would forgive her, and she would definitely promise to work less. Maybe when the project was over, she could really leave on time. Elena was used to hard work from early childhood. No one seeing her now, in an expensive suit, on heels, with an impeccable hairstyle stepping out of a new foreign car, would believe that she grew up in a remote village. An hour and a half to the nearest town seemed like an eternity in a world of dilapidated houses, bad roads, and freely roaming pigs and cows. That's how she remembered her small homeland. She was raised by her grandmother, although her parents were alive. Her mother divorced her father when Elena was only 4, and she barely remembered him. Her first vivid memory was a long, bumpy journey on an old bus with her mother, surrounded by many bags and suitcases. At her grandmother's house in the village, little Ellie was happy. She spent her days playing with the neighbors' children, running wild, and eating the most delicious grandmother's pies. But her mother didn't like it there, and after a few months she left for the city, promising to return as soon as she settled down. At first she came often, then less and less, until she came with news of her marriage. Her mother brought Uncle Leo, whom Elena didn't like. He tried too hard to seem good, but her mother was happy with him, and soon they got married. Only they weren't in a hurry to take Elena to live with them. "Why isn't Mom coming for me?" the girl asked her grandmother, who only sighed. "They have a very small apartment," her grandmother explained, immediately adding, "Aren't you happy with me?" "No, Grandma," Elena replied, and they continued to live together. Gradually, Elena got used to this life. Grandma Eleanor was kind, cheerful, and never despaired. "The main thing is that we are alive and healthy," she would say, "and as long as our hands and feet are whole and our head works, everything can be fixed." Her granddaughter was named after her, and in the village they were called Eleanor the Elder and Ellie the Younger, a nickname that stuck with her for many years. But no matter how hard her grandmother tried, Age took its toll, and Ellie understood early on that Grandma Eleanor needed her help. At first, her mother sent a little money, but after getting married, she stopped. Her grandmother's pension was barely enough for two. The garden, chickens, and goats saved them. But Ellie understood that this couldn't go on forever. It was she who needed to work to provide a decent life for herself and her grandmother. From childhood, she began looking for ways to earn money. Some women went to the city to sell produce, and Ellie wanted to too, but her grandmother wouldn't allow it. "You're too small for the city and the market," she would say, assuring her that there was enough money. But Elena saw how her grandmother denied herself much, how Uncle Ian mended her old boots again and again. "If you won't let me go to the city, I'll find a way to earn money here," the granddaughter stubbornly decided. She collected berries and mushrooms for resellers, looked for medicinal herbs that a visiting man would buy. Her grandmother showed her the right spots, and Ellie would go into the forest early in the morning with a sack, collecting as much as she could carry. She also learned that the local store accepted empty glass bottles. Many people collected them, but no one wanted to wash them to return. Ellie didn't hesitate. She collected bottles from houses, brought them to the yard, and washed them. This way, she got rid of her neighbors' clutter and earned a little extra money. She also collected scrap metal with the local boys. When she was accepted into their group, the leader, Freckled Andy, explained the rules. "If you find it, it's yours, but you have to carry it yourself." Ellie couldn't carry as much as the boys, but she still earned a decent amount. She quickly realized that copper was the most valuable and learned to find it in old parts at the junkyard of abandoned cars. With this money, she bought herself clothes, shoes, school supplies, and made sure her grandmother also had everything she needed. "You're my little breadwinner," her grandmother would say, with tears of tenderness when her granddaughter handed her the money. "When I grow up, Grandma," Ellie would reply, "I'll take you to the city. I'll buy us a big house, and you won't have to work in the garden anymore." Grandma Eleanor would just laugh. "I'm happy here, my little one, but if you don't forget your old grandmother, I'll be very happy." At school, Elena was an excellent student, especially excelling in exact sciences and social studies. After the 11th grade, she entered the best city university to study economics. Her mother offered her to live with them, but Elena refused, citing the small apartment where her 2-year-old brother Stevie already lived. It seemed that after his birth, her mother had completely forgotten about her. Elena pretended not to be offended, but sometimes at night she cried into her pillow, wondering why her mother loved her less than her brother. She also studied excellently at university, combining her studies with work and sending money to her grandmother every month. "You'll see, Grandma," she would say. "I'll graduate from the institute, get a job at a cool firm, move you in with me, and we'll live well." Her grandmother only smiled in response. "The main thing is that you are well, my darling granddaughter." Elena passed all her exams with excellent marks, received a red diploma, and was about to go to the village when her mother called. "Ellie," she sobbed into the phone, "your grandmother died." They all came to the village together. Mother, stepfather, Ellie, and little Stevie. The following week passed for Elena in a haze, stunned by what had happened. Her mother and stepfather were busy with the funeral, and Elena looked after her brother sitting on the floor in her familiar grandmother's house. Watching Stevie play with his toys, she thought, "What should I do now?" She had promised her grandmother to take her to the city, buy a huge house, live together. What was the point of trying now? "Ellie, I need to talk to you," her mother said after the funeral. "We found your grandmother's will," she continued. "She wanted this house to go to you." Elena shrugged indifferently. "It doesn't matter to me," she replied. "I won't live here anyway. Everything here reminds me of Grandma and my childhood." "Do as you wish," her mother sighed. A week later, Elena gathered her strength and returned to the city. This was the life she had dreamed of since childhood. She got a job and worked her way up the ladder in the following years. At 28, she became the youngest managing director in a large company. Only her personal life didn't work out. Elena simply didn't let anyone close until she met Paul. Maybe it was love at first sight, or maybe it was just time for strong feelings. Paul was her complete opposite, easygoing, cheerful, carefree. He balanced her seriousness. He had his own fitness studio, which he opened after starting as a simple trainer. Elena immediately warned him that she worked a lot, and Paul replied, "It's okay, I love my work too. And if I finish early, I'll cook dinner and wait for my beautiful girl." At first, it was like that, but lately, Paul had been getting increasingly irritated by her work. Arguments became more frequent. Then Elena decided to surprise him, acting so that he wouldn't suspect anything. After another argument, she started calling and texting more often. During one of these calls, she asked, "What time are you finishing today?" "Why?" Paul became wary. "Nothing," Elena quickly replied. "It's just that I'll be staying late again today. Sorry." She thought he sighed with relief. "Well, I'll be back late too today, so it's no big deal." Elena smiled. "Thank you for understanding everything." "Of course, darling." He hung up. He's probably still upset, Elena thought, but immediately decided, "It's okay, today I'll melt his heart." Her new dress had just arrived, thin, red, perfectly accentuating her figure. "In a dress like this, he'll definitely forgive me," she said contentedly, putting it back in the box. All the employees were surprised when she announced that she would be leaving early today. Of course, no one dared to ask the boss out loud. Elena arrived home, parked in her usual spot, and was surprised to see Paul's car next to hers. He must have taken a taxi today, she thought, too excited to wait for the elevator. She ran up to the 5th floor, opened the door, and froze on the threshold. In the hallway, Paul's scattered sneakers lay on the floor, along with some red women's sandals. No, a thought flashed through her mind. This only happens in bad comedies. Taking a deep breath, she tried to compose herself. She calmly put the box with the dress on the floor, took off her shoes, and slowly walked into the apartment. Almost immediately, she heard her fiancé's voice from the bedroom. Elena slowly entered the room. First, she saw Paul's back, then she noticed the girl. "Well, well," Elena said calmly. "So I wasn't imagining it when I heard the joy in your voice, at the news that I would be coming home late today." Paul spun around sharply, such fear in his eyes that Elena almost found it funny. A young blonde girl shrieked loudly and pulled the blanket over herself. "Elena!" Paul breathed out in astonishment. She expected any reaction, clumsy excuses, pleas for forgiveness, but her fiancé managed to surprise her. He sighed sadly and said, "Well, maybe it's for the best." Then he turned to the girl huddled under the blanket. "Jane, wait for me in the car, please. I'll be down in half an hour." Elena watched in surprise as Jane fearfully scrambled out from under the blanket, quickly dressed, and disappeared into the hallway. A second later, the front door slammed shut. "All right," Elena said. "And what does all this mean?" Paul sat on the bed, rubbing his temples tiredly. "It means that I'm tired and have been thinking for a long time that we should break up." Elena walked over and sat down beside him. "But why?" she asked. "I thought we just had some minor problems." Her fiancé shook his head. "The problem is much deeper. We are too different. It's not even that you work a lot, but that work is much more important to you than I am. And that's how it's always been." He looked at her. "And I can't live like that. I'm built differently. I'm not an achiever. I like to work, but I'm not ready to live in my gym like you live in the office. I want to enjoy life, and you don't know how to do that." "Well, perhaps you're right. It will be better for both of us. I'm sorry," Paul said. He stood up, took out a suitcase, and began packing his things. Elena went to the kitchen and sat there until she heard the front door slam. "All right," Elena said to herself. "At least I have my job. I'm about to finish the project, I'll take a vacation, and I'll start a new life." Only everything turned out completely differently. A week later, arriving at work, she found her office being searched. "Elena Miller," a stranger in a black suit addressed her. "Yes?" she replied in surprise. "What's happening?" He ignored her question. "Come with me to your office. I need to take your statement." It turned out that the firm's management was suspected of major fraud. Work was frozen, and the accounts and property of key employees were seized. "Wait," Elena said. "Does that mean my property is also seized?" "Yes, your car, apartment, and all bank accounts." "And for how long?" Elena asked. "Until the circumstances are clarified," he replied coldly. "But I had absolutely no idea. What should I do then? Stay with friends or relatives?" Elena signed the papers and went home. She was allowed to take what was necessary before moving out indefinitely. On the way, she called her lawyer. He couldn't say anything encouraging. "The charges are serious," he said, "and investigations take a long time, months, sometimes even years. And will all my property be under arrest all this time? He sighed. I'm afraid so, Elena Miller. The only place she could go was her old grandmother's house in the village. After her grandmother's death, Elena had never returned there. At first glance, the house had barely changed, only grown more dilapidated. Elena took an old rusted key from her bag. Well, hello, Grandma, she said softly. In childhood, the house seemed much bigger to her. Now everything looked small, old, but so familiar. Elena walked through the room, sat on the bed where she used to sleep. What should I do now, Grandma? She asked the empty room. I thought I had everything. It turns out you can lose it all in an instant. Fiancé, love, career, money, apartment. What's left? Your little house that I completely forgot about. Then, for the first time in many years, she cried bitterly. Elena woke up in the morning to bright sunlight. She hadn't even noticed falling asleep and had forgotten to draw the curtains. Well, she sighed. For so many years, I woke up to an alarm clock, and yesterday I even forgot to set it. Although, what do I need it for now? I don't have a job. At that moment, her stomach rumbled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten anything since yesterday's lunch. In her grandmother's house, of course, there was nothing edible, so she had to go to the store. It was still very early, and Elena decided to spend this time cleaning. As she tidied up, sweeping away the dust that had accumulated over the years, she was subtly distracted from her sad thoughts. Perhaps if this drags on for a long time, I'll have to find a job here, Elena reasoned. Maybe I'll even start a farm, chickens or geese, or maybe even a cow. After cleaning, she was even hungrier, and Elena, relieved to see that it was time, headed to the store. She walked through the village and noted with surprise that it seemed better than in her childhood. Many new houses had appeared, and the old ones had been renovated and painted. The store, standing in the same place, gleamed with a new sign. And the sign isn't printed, it's painted, Elena thought, and the artist is talented. I wonder if it's someone local? She went inside and was surprised by the cleanliness, coziness, and assortment. The shop assistant, a young, pretty girl, smiled warmly and approached her. Good morning, she said. You're our first customer today. Elena smiled back. Good morning to you, too. Nice to hear. Did you come here for the summer? The girl asked. I don't know yet. And how did you guess so quickly that I'm not local? Well, there aren't that many residents here. I know everyone by sight. Elena laughed. Right, I didn't think of that. I lived here until I was 17. Then I moved to the city. She looked thoughtfully at the shop assistant. Strange, you're younger than me, but not by much. Theoretically, I should remember you. The girl smiled. No, I only came here a year ago with my older brother. Oh, is that so? Elena was surprised. To live? Yeah. I didn't think anyone would voluntarily move to such a backwater. Anya looked a little offended. You shouldn't say that, she said. It's quite nice here. Not far from the city, but with beautiful nature and clean air. Actually, it was my brother who wanted to come here. He's an artist. Oh, really? Elena exclaimed. So he painted the sign? Yes, it's very beautiful. Thank you, I'll be sure to tell him. But I've completely chattered away. And you came to shop. It was very interesting. By the way, my name is Elena. Very nice to meet you, Anya. The shop assistant extended a small, firm hand decisively, which Elena shook. After that, she dictated her shopping list. Anya quickly brought the goods and advised her on what was best. In the end, both girls were pleased with each other. Where do you live? Anya asked. The second to last house on the edge of the village, Elena said, on the side where the lake is. That's great, Anya exclaimed happily. My brother and I live in the last house. I'll definitely introduce you sometime. Okay, Elena replied. I'd be happy to. The weather was beautiful, and Elena decided to eat outside. She didn't feel like cooking, so she made cheese and sausage sandwiches on fresh bread, brewed fragrant tea, and went out onto the porch. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and Elena sat, ate, and enjoyed the summer day. She realized with surprise that she couldn't remember the last time she had simply sat like this, without work, without plans, without thinking about business. Suddenly, a meow sounded at her feet. Elena turned her head and saw a fat striped cat, which had silently climbed onto the porch. It looked at her with interest, or rather at the plate of sandwiches. Judging by your appearance, you're not suffering from hunger? Elena remarked. The cat looked attentively and repeated insistently, "Meow." "All right, you little extortionist, here you go." She pulled out some sausage and gave it to the cat. It sniffed, took it carefully, placed it on the porch, and began to eat. "Enjoy your meal," Elena said and closed her eyes, deciding to continue basking in the sun. But after a few seconds, the peace was disturbed again. "Sandro," a man's voice called out nearby. "Sandro, where are you? Did you run off to the neighbor's house again?" Elena glanced at the cat, but it didn't react at all. "It seems that's for you," Elena remarked. "Sandro, are you here?" The gate swung open and she saw a handsome blue-eyed man with slightly curly light hair and a small sandy beard. He clearly didn't expect to see anyone here but the cat, and looked embarrassed. "Excuse me, please. My cat is behind me. He's constantly running off to this house, so sometimes I come to catch him. Honestly, I haven't touched anything here except the cat." Elena smiled. "It's all right. You have a very cute cat." She looked at Sandro, who, having finished the sausage, was washing himself. "He's already begged food from you, too," the cat's owner said regretfully. "It's impossible to refuse him," Elena replied. "And you must be the artist, Anya's brother?" "That's me," he said in surprise. "I don't think I've earned that title yet, at least if you meant it in a good way. But yes, I am indeed Anya's brother, Arthur." He extended his hand as firm as his sister's, only larger. "Elena," the girl said, shaking his hand. "Very nice to meet you." "If I had known someone lived here, I wouldn't have intruded so unceremoniously," he said. "I only arrived yesterday," Elena replied, "so there was no way you could have known about me, and I met your sister a couple of hours ago when I went to the store." "Well, then that explains everything. Are you staying long?" "I don't know myself yet, but most likely, yes." Arthur picked up the cat, who meowed discontentedly but didn't resist. "Come visit us any time," Arthur said. "I'm often at home unless I go somewhere, and my sister works until 6, then she'll come too." "Okay," Elena replied. "I'll definitely drop by sometime. Just give me a couple of days to settle in and get everything in order here." "Of course," Arthur replied. "If you need help, just ask. The doors of our house are always open, literally." The neighbor and the cat left, and Elena reached for her phone. She was waiting for a call, either the lawyer with good news or Paul. Thinking of him, Elena immediately swore to herself. "Business. I'll go do something useful." Until evening, Elena was tidying up the house. She washed the windows, swept away cobwebs, vacuumed the furniture and the huge, heavy carpet that covered the entire room. As long as she could remember, it had always been there. Her grandmother, it seemed, never took it outside, cleaning it right in place. It must have been made of very high-quality material because after so many years it remained dense, only the colors had faded. At first, Elena wanted to take it out, but grabbing a corner, she realized how heavy it was. "Let it stay here," she decided. Grandma never moved it for a reason. She spent the first couple of days cleaning, and there was no time to think about anything else. But now that the house was in order, visiting the neighbors seemed like a good idea. "Anya is a very sweet, lively girl," Elena thought. "We'll find common ground. She clearly has a business streak. And her brother is probably just a nice eccentric. Well, sometimes you can talk to people like that, too." Out of curiosity, she resolutely stood up, left the house, hung the old lock, and went to the neighbors. She immediately noticed how different their house was. Elena didn't remember who lived there in her childhood, but it was certainly a simple village house. Now it was renovated, plastered, and painted a soft salmon color. Beautiful, Elena thought, and very unusual. She walked up to the gate and pushed it. It wasn't locked. A battered SUV stood in the yard. Anya probably used it to go to the city for supplies. And there were flowers in the yard, just ordinary wildflowers. This seemed strange, as they were usually considered weeds and pulled up. "Arthur," Elena called out. "Anya." "Meow," came the response. Sandro was sitting on the porch, squinting in the sun. "Hello, buddy," Elena greeted him. "And where's your owner?" "I'm here," a voice sounded unexpectedly close, making her jump. Elena hadn't noticed that she was standing near the open window from which Arthur had replied. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." "It's all right, I just got bored at home. So I remembered your invitation." Arthur smiled. "I'm very glad. My sister was upset that you weren't coming over and wanted to drop by your place this evening." He squinted slyly. "If you're not too busy right now, we can take a walk. I was just looking for a new spot for my painting. Elena shrugged. She didn't like pointless walks, but there was nothing else to do. Okay, she replied. Then I'm coming. Arthur came out of the house and a few minutes later appeared with a huge backpack on his shoulders. I'm ready, he replied. Let's go. And close the door, Elena reminded him. And the windows. What if someone gets in? He shrugged. Everyone here seems nice, but if someone decides to, well, that will be on their conscience. What a philosophy, Elena thought, but said nothing. They went out the gate, and Arthur confidently led her along a path. At first, Elena thought they would go to the lake where she used to swim as a child, but they walked past without stopping. Tell me about yourself, Arthur suddenly asked. You're so mysterious. Elena smiled. I don't know why you think that. This house was empty, but now I needed a place to live, so I moved here. That's all. Well, it's your business. I won't pry. It's just that you're clearly not the kind of person who would come here of their own free will. Well, then I can say that you and your sister are no less mysterious figures. He laughed. That's true. What do you think? Maybe we'll stop here. I think it's a good spot. Engrossed in conversation, Elena didn't notice how they had reached a small hill overlooking the lake. Beautiful, Elena admitted. I lived here for so many years, but I've never seen it from this angle. Arthur gave her a blanket, which she spread on the grass and sat down on. The artist himself took out an easel, canvas, paints, and brushes from his backpack. The day was warm but not hot, and she enjoyed this unexpected outing into nature with pleasure. If I talk to you, will it bother you a lot? She asked. Arthur shook his head negatively. Not at all. My hand's right, and my head can do whatever it wants, and talking to such a smart, interesting girl will be doubly pleasant. Elena smiled. Okay. Will you be offended if I ask something personal? He shrugged. Generally, I don't think I'm easily offended. You can try. Your work? It's not very profitable, is it? Especially in the village. True, but it's enough for me to live on. And most importantly, I'm doing what I love. Just like my sister. She has a great store, Elena remarked. It seems she knows how to run a business. Arthur smiled. I knew from the first glance that you and Anya are very similar. Elena decided to be honest. Yes, I appreciate it when people have a passion they are willing to give themselves to completely and achieve maximum results. In monetary terms, Arthur clarified with a smile. And are you against money? No. It's just that different people need different amounts of it, and many don't know how to earn it and console themselves by saying that money isn't everything. She stopped, thinking that Arthur probably thought exactly that. But the artist wasn't offended, he just smiled. Well, I really do think so, he said. Of course, I'm not an ascetic, I don't want to live in a hut, but the life I'm living now suits me perfectly, and I feel happy. Well, I'm happy for you, Elena replied, but my life doesn't suit me, not now. I lived in a huge apartment, drove a luxurious car, had hundreds of people under me, and I was absolutely happy. And now I've lost all of that, and I don't know when I'll be able to get it back. And I'm completely unhappy with that. The artist turned and looked at her. Strange, he said. When I first saw you, feeding the cat sausage, you looked completely happy. It was just a moment, but life consists of moments. Elena couldn't think of an answer to that. She just looked at the lake and remembered swimming there as a child with the other kids, staying in the water until her lips turned blue. Then she would run home to her grandmother, who would rub her down with a towel and take her to the bathhouse. It was so hot in there that the warmth penetrated to her bones, and how good it felt after the bathhouse to sit at the table, wrapped in a towel, watching her grandmother fuss, pouring tea with milk, pushing pies towards her. But even later, in the city, she remembered her apartment, huge, expensive in the center, in a super-modern complex. The best designer had done the renovation. Only Elena was almost never in that apartment because she was at work all the time. Yes, her expensive car. She drove it for 10 minutes in the morning because there were no traffic jams yet, and 10 minutes in the evening because the traffic jams were already gone. And work? Did work really make her happy? Or not? Or was it just the only place where she felt truly important and needed, where she was valued, praised, called the best? And to not lose that, Elena was ready to spend her whole life there. I don't even have any friends, she suddenly thought sadly. She had friends at university, they kept in touch for a while. Then every time they suggested meeting, I refused because I was either working or had to work the next day. Then they stopped inviting me themselves. Making friends at work. Everyone there was either my subordinate or a competitor. It's even strange that I managed to start dating Paul. Lost in such thoughts, Elena didn't even notice how much time had passed. She came to when Arthur spoke again. I think that's enough for today. Can I see? Elena asked. Of course. He stepped aside and she saw the painting, and she was very surprised. Elena expected just a landscape. It was a complete surprise to see herself there. Yes, there was the lake and the forest, but somewhere far away, blurred in the background. Most of the painting was occupied by Elena herself, and though her face was barely visible, the pose itself, her head resting on crossed arms, the inner state. Yes, you can clearly see how desperate I am here, Elena thought sadly. How did he manage to capture it all? You didn't like it? Arthur asked anxiously. Elena forced herself to smile. It's unexpected, she said honestly. I didn't even notice you were painting me all this time. Arthur smiled. Honestly, I didn't plan to. But I looked at you once and realized I wouldn't rest until I captured this state of yours today. Elena chuckled awkwardly. You definitely have talent. Thank you. Sorry if I embarrassed you. It's hard to embarrass me. He smiled. My sister should be back from work soon. I suggest we go back and make dinner. Are you tired of me yet today? On the contrary, it's interesting. In the time Anya and I have lived here, I've gotten to know all the villagers, and I really wanted something new. And then you arrived. Oh, really? So I'm just another new subject for you? He laughed. Not only. I was curious before to imagine what you're really like, but I didn't expect to see you in person. Seeing Elena's puzzled look, the artist explained, Your neighbor, Uncle Ian, told me a lot about you. Elena chuckled. Oh, really? And what did he say? That people like you are born very rarely, that you were special from childhood, bright like the sun and strong like the wind, that you never doubted yourself and there was no task you couldn't handle. Well, that's not entirely true now, Elena remarked. Not at all. That's exactly how you look. She smiled sadly. Look at your painting. Clearly not. Arthur sighed. I understand that something serious has happened in your life, but I think it's no accident that you returned here. Elena laughed. So you're not only a non-materialist, a romantic, and an altruist, but also a mystic? Arthur laughed. Too much for you? Yes, but you're right. Here, I feel like I'm truly regaining my strength, and I'm very happy about that. The cat was waiting for them on the porch. Sandro? Elena suddenly said. Is that after Sandro Botticelli? Yes, Arthur replied. Banal. Well? The cat meowed expressively, and its owner frowned. I was hoping that life in nature would teach him to find his own food. He does find it, Elena said in defense of the cat, in the way he can. It was cool inside Arthur's house. All the walls, as she expected, were covered with paintings. You really are very talented, Elena said, looking at them. Thank you. Will you help me with dinner? Of course. By the time Anya returned from work, everything was ready. Wow, she said, seeing Elena. I was just planning to drop by your place this evening. They hugged. Although Elena was seeing this girl for the second time, she felt an inexplicable sympathy towards her. And I've been bothering your, as it turns out, very talented brother all day, Elena said. Anya laughed. Yes, he's almost a genius. Enough, Arthur grumbled. Let's eat. During dinner, Elena decided to talk about Arthur's paintings again. What I saw today is simply amazing. She specifically addressed Anya, hoping she would support her. And it's a crime that Arthur's paintings are just hanging in your village house and no one sees them. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed that the artist frowned but continued. I can look among my acquaintances for someone who can help you organize an exhibition. I'm sure Arthur will have huge success and fame. To her surprise, Anya smiled and shook her head negatively. Thank you for the offer, she replied, but we don't need that. What? Elena thought she had misheard. All right, Arthur, but you, Anya. At our first meeting, you seemed exactly like me. You have a business sense and... We don't need fame, attention, and success, Arthur suddenly interrupted her. We had our reasons for coming here. I don't want any big exhibitions. I just want to live here quietly and peacefully. Elena looked at the sister, and for a second it seemed to her that tears gleamed in Anya's eyes. What's happening? Elena wondered. I just wanted to help them. All right, she said aloud. I've interfered in something that's none of my business. I see you have some personal reasons. She carefully got up from the table and stroked Sandro, who was perched on a nearby chair. And anyway, I've overstayed my welcome today. It was a good day. I was glad to meet you. Goodbye. Neither brother nor sister said a word. And only when Elena had already left the gate, a breathless Anya caught up with her. Elena, wait. Elena looked back. Judging by her slightly red eyes, the girl was on the verge of tears. Forgive us, Anya suddenly said. Honestly, I really want to be friends with you, and my brother liked you too, which is rare. He tries not to let people get close, and there are reasons for that. Anyway, we really want to be friends with you. And about the gallery, it was a wonderful offer, if under different circumstances. It's a pity I can't tell you everything. She suddenly grabbed Elena's fingers with her small, strong hands and squeezed them tightly. Just please believe me that there are reasons why we came here and are trying to live this quiet, peaceful life, and promise not to be offended. Okay, Elena replied. I won't. The days flowed quite calmly. Elena called her lawyer, tried to contact the firm's management, and find out how things were going, but there was no news. The investigation is underway. When it will finish and what the results will be is unclear yet. There was only one thing left to do. Wait. And that was the worst part. To keep herself busy, Elena started getting closer to her neighbors. She helped Anya at the store, and they went to the city together for supplies several times. Then, Elena helped unload, arrange, and do paperwork. This is completely beneath you, she once told her friend. You could easily handle a chain of supermarkets. If you worked for me, you'd have been in charge of a huge department long ago. Anya only smiled. I'm happy here, she replied. Elena noted this strange phrase to herself, but decided that the time to learn the details had not yet come. When she wasn't helping Anya, she would visit Arthur. He took her out into nature several times, and Elena was surprised each time. She had lived here for so many years, but Arthur, who had arrived recently, easily found places of such beauty that it took her breath away. It's just the ability of every artist, he replied modestly. Another one of your talents, she clarified. The artist only shook his head. You are a very interesting girl, he remarked. When you meet strangers, you pretend to be cold, act as if people don't interest you, but in reality, you are very attentive and see the good core in everyone, which perhaps the person themselves doesn't even suspect. Elena blushed. You're praising me too much. You underestimate yourself. I've never had problems with self-esteem. This is different. They were silent for a while, and she simply watched how diligently Arthur sketched the clouds scudding across the sky, wondering how he managed, since they were constantly changing position. Then a question came to Elena's mind. Tell me, she asked, how do you imagine your future in 10 or 20 years? He suddenly sighed and looked somewhere into the distance. That's too long a time to guess, the artist replied. For now, I can only say that I really like it here, and I want to stay here forever. The last word sounded a little gloomy, and Elena wanted to put on something warm to chase away the goosebumps. She suddenly realized that with each passing day, she was becoming more and more attached to her childhood village and to this brother and sister. And 2 weeks later, her lawyer called. Elena Miller. He was practically jumping in the receiver. This is the tone used to announce either very good or very bad news. The investigation is over. No violations, they shouted to her. We're waiting for you at the office tomorrow. You can return to your apartment. Elena sharply exhaled and sat on the floor. The news made her head spin. You're not joking, are you? She asked, just in case. The lawyer was taken aback. God forbid. Of course not. Sorry, it's just unexpected. Thank you for the news. She put the phone on the floor and tried to compose herself. Of course, this was wonderful news, and she should feel immense joy, but for some reason she immediately thought that this meant she would have to leave the village and return to her endless work cycle, where there was not a moment of peace. Meow. Elena turned her head in surprise. It was hot, the door was open, only covered by a sheer curtain. Taking advantage of this, the cat was sitting in the house and looking at her as if Elena owed him something. "You're a cheeky one," Elena said. She got up, cut a thick slice of sausage, and gave it to the cat. It didn't even look at the treat and repeated insistently, "Meow." "All right, Your Holiness," meowed Jesty. "I don't have anything else. Either eat this or go home and bother your owner." "Meow," Elena sighed, scooped up the striped rogue, and went to the neighbors. "Arthur," she called through the window, which as always was open. "I brought the cat." No one answered. "Arthur?" Silence. She could have left Sandro, but for some reason Elena decided to go inside. She saw Arthur immediately. He was lying on the floor unconscious. "Arthur!" She rushed to him, checked his pulse. Alive. She immediately called Anya. She explained the situation. "I'll be there in a minute," Anya replied instantly. Elena started thinking about what to do. His heart was beating. He was breathing. She gently patted his cheek. Arthur tried to open his eyes. "Can you hear me?" Elena asked. "Hold on, I'll call an ambulance now." "Don't," he whispered. "My sister? I'm here." Anya quickly slipped into the kitchen and returned with a glass of water and a pill. She helped her brother swallow it. Then she and Elena together moved him to the sofa. Making sure he was out of danger, Anya led Elena out onto the porch. "Do you know what's wrong with him?" Elena asked. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes. "I do," she replied curtly. "It's hereditary. My mother had the same thing." Elena couldn't find the words. "No. Well, that is, there's a deep damage to the nervous system. There's one injection, it's expensive, and it costs so much that no fund will help." Elena swallowed, making a decision immediately. "Tell me how much." Anya named the sum. Elena whistled. "Exactly," Anya said with a bitter smile. "And we're constantly short of money. That's why we left here. Arthur wants to paint while he can and live these years peacefully with me." And then she cried. Elena silently hugged her. Her head was occupied with something completely different. She spent the rest of the day on the phone. Even if she sold her apartment, car, and took all the money from her accounts, a large sum was still missing. Where could she get it? Elena asked aloud. "Oh, Grandma, if you were alive, no matter how poor we were, you always came up with something, always got money from somewhere." She suddenly remembered that when she asked where the money came from, Grandma Eleanor would say, "The house spirit gave it to me, but you can't just take money from him only for a great need." Elena had trouble falling asleep. Before bed, she thought about her grandmother, so she was almost not surprised when she opened her eyes and saw that Grandma Eleanor was sitting by her bed and gently stroking her head. "Grandma," Elena exclaimed in surprise, "am I dreaming?" "Of course, my little one." "Did I do something wrong?" "You're doing everything right, my dear. Only I don't understand one thing. You started living in my house, you cleaned everything up, but why didn't you ever properly shake out the carpet?" Elena couldn't find an answer to that, and her grandmother smiled again and disappeared. Elena woke up with a pounding heart. She grabbed the heavy carpet and began rolling it up. "Nonsense," she muttered. "I've just gone crazy." But suddenly, on the floor, she saw an almost invisible square door. There was no handle. She had to struggle, inserting a knife into the crack. The door gave way and opened, revealing a passage to a small cellar. Elena shone a flashlight and found an old metal chest at the bottom. Not believing her eyes, she opened the lid and gasped. "Well, how is he?" Elena asked Anya. She hadn't been able to come for Arthur's discharge, as business kept her in the city, but she rushed over as soon as she was free. "He's sleeping," Anya said. "Sorry, I'd invite you in, but I'm afraid to wake him." "Then let's go to my place," Elena suggested. The girl nodded. When they arrived at Elena's and sat down at the table, Anya said, "I haven't even properly thanked you for saving my brother. Thank you. I'll never forget it. Consider yourself like a sister to me now. Perhaps this is the first truly good thing I've done in my life." "Don't say that. You're a very good person. I know you sold your apartment, car, and took all the money from your account. And also—" She looked at Elena sheepishly. Elena laughed. "Yes, I also found a treasure in my grandmother's house. It sounds incredible." "Exactly. Do you think your grandmother knew about it?" "Of course she couldn't not know. and it seems she hinted at it in childhood, told fairy tales. But I either didn't understand or didn't want to believe. As I understand now, she herself didn't want to use it because she didn't think it belonged to her. I see. Yes. Grandma believed that this money could only be taken in a special case. Well, that's exactly what happened. Anya smiled. It's strange that I'm asking this, she said. But do you regret that everything happened this way? I'm not talking about the fact that you saved your brother's life, met us, learned our secret. Otherwise, all your property, money, and these treasures would have remained with you, and now you only have your job. Elena smiled. I don't have a job either. I wrote my resignation letter today. Anya's eyes widened. What? But what about everything you told me about? Career, achievements, opportunities? No, I don't regret it. Yes, I would have a lot of money, but it wouldn't have made me happier. And believe me, it's strange for me to say this, but I suddenly realized that I spent my whole life striving for success and wealth, but when I got it all, I didn't become happier. To understand this, I needed to lose that money, even if temporarily, and it was easy for me to trade all of that for Arthur's life and health. Even though I know him only a little, I'm sure he is exactly the kind of person who truly understands what life is and knows how to appreciate it. Anya's eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped them away and asked, And what about you? Will you stay with us? Elena smiled. For now, yes. I don't even know what I'll do next. But for now, I'm happy here, and I'm very glad that we met. And we are too, Anya replied. Very. They talked a little more, after which Anya went home to look after her brother. A few days later, Arthur was strong enough to visit his rescuer. Shall we take a walk? He asked Elena when he came to visit. Can you? She asked doubtfully. If I stay lying down, I'll die. I feel quite well. Without speaking, they walked along the same path that led past the lake to the hill where Arthur had first painted Elena. Imagine that, she said in surprise. Not much time has passed since we were here for the first time, but it feels like a lifetime. Arthur smiled. Just like last time, he spread the blanket and they sat down next to each other. In my opinion, he replied, that's the beauty of life. Sometimes hundreds of years pass the same way, repeating each other, and sometimes in a few weeks you can experience enough for a whole lifetime. Elena smiled. I remember, she said, how we sat here and you asked if I believed that everything that happened for a reason. Yes, that was it. I was terribly angry with you then, Elena admitted. I thought you were just an eccentric who didn't know life and imagined himself as some kind of romantic and philosopher. Arthur laughed, but every word I said is the pure truth. I am indeed like that. That's just a small part of you. You and your sister are truly amazing people. Now I'm sure that meeting you was fate. He turned his head towards her and looked with curiosity. And you never cease to surprise me, Elena. As I said before, you see the good in people even though you didn't show it at first. But I'm surprised that you're still not ready to admit that you see the good in yourself too. You know that you are smart and hardworking, that you can achieve incredible success in your career, but you stubbornly refuse to admit that you are a wonderful person, worthy of love and friendship, whom it's impossible not to love. It's as if you do everything to make people think you are cold and unfeeling. If my sister and I have helped you even a little to see yourself as you truly are, I'm very happy about that. Elena suddenly felt hot tears streaming down her face. She didn't hold them back, but only moved closer to Arthur. He put his arm around her, and she rested her head on his shoulder. No more words were needed. They just sat together, looking at the lake illuminated by the bright summer sun, and Elena felt as if a huge burden she had carried since childhood had just fallen from her shoulders. She didn't know what she would do next. Would she and Anya remain friends? Would she have a relationship with Arthur? But she was firmly sure of only one thing. She would never lose her true self again.